Pat Kelsey has added another player to next year's roster.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this second Thursday episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Usually, if we have 2 episodes in a day, that means that significant news has dropped. And on Thursday afternoon, it was reported by John Chepkovich, I hope I'm saying that right, director of scouting for DraftExpress.com. According to him, Greek big man Vangelis Zougris has officially committed to the Louisville Cardinals. We'll discuss what he brings to the table, what this means for the Cardinals front court, and whether or not Louisville will add any more players for next year's roster outside of the Ali Khalifa situation. So we have talked about Zougris a couple times on this show. I actually had a mailbag question yesterday that was pertaining to if Louisville was going to add anyone else besides waiting for Ali Khalifa. Well, that question was answered today, and I feel kind of silly for saying this. I mentioned that my confidence was waning a little bit with the Zougris sweepstakes because we hadn't heard anything over the past couple of weeks since we found out that the Cardinals were rumored to be the favorite in this recruitment. Now, I did acknowledge that things are kept very close to chest on the international recruiting side of things. There's a lot of factors built in, more so than traditional high school recruiting in the United States. So sometimes you don't hear about anything for a while. Well, we got the news on Thursday afternoon. 6'8", 260-pound big man Vangelis is his nickname. Zougris has committed to Louisville. Zougris played this season in the top league in Greece for, I believe it's pronounced Peristeri, BC, which of course is one of the teams in that top league. And the Greek league, for those that don't know, it's the league that Rick Pitino coached in after his stint at Louisville. It is a league that is extremely physical. It's one of the better competitive leagues in the entire European landscape. You know, you talk about the Bundesliga, where Sananda is playing in, or was playing in currently, until his team lost in the quarterfinal round on Thursday, where he had 21 points and 15 rebounds, 4 blocks, by the way. But anyways, back to Zougris. Another player that Louisville brings in is playing at the top level in Europe. Now, let's take a look at the statistical numbers. Zougris this season appeared in 23 games for Peristeri, averaging 17.7 minutes per contest. You look at the minutes distribution for the club, and no player played over 29 minutes a game. So really balanced attack. He appeared in 23 games, 17.7 minutes per game, 7.9 points per game on 68.5% shooting. 7.9 points per game doesn't, of course, it's not a lot, but when you consider the usage and his role, I think it's pretty substantial. Averaged 4.6 rebounds a game, 1 assist, 0.5 steals, 0.5 blocks, 1.3 turnovers. 68.8% from the free throw line on pretty small sample size, 2 free throws a game. He did not attempt 1 3-pointer this season. So I think for starters, we have to acknowledge that this addition is addressing the end of the rotation the same way the addition of Muhammad Kamara did. And we knew this. Like, I've had some Louisville fans ask me over the past weeks, and especially over the past, 30 minutes since it's been before or between the announcement and this recording, I don't see the hype about this guy. Where's the potential? Well, I think first things first, you're wanting him to play that end of the rotation role this year. And recruiting for the end of the rotation can be challenging. You might have the money via NIL, revenue sharing, whatever may have you, but trying to recruit a top player to sacrifice and play a lesser role is not always that easy. So I actually almost prefer this to an extent at the end of the rotation because Zougris will be 21 by the start of next season, born in October. He's 20 years old currently, will be 21, one of the youngest players for his Pedestre team. But will be 21, so 6'8", 260 pounds, has the college-ready frame. He's going to be able to come in and be able to bang down low, attack the glass, and execute his role. And there's not a ton of I say this in a vacuum. There's not a ton of developing that needs to be done. What I mean by that is he's not extremely raw to the point to where you can't play him. If you need to play him, you can play him. Now, what is the ceiling looking like for a guy like Zougris? That's a different question because his game is somewhat limited, especially on the offensive end. There's not really a perimeter scoring threat at the moment. It is all around the basket, whether it is as the roll man in pick and roll situations, whether it is cleaning up the offensive glass or playing in the post, where he has shown the ability to, get the ball down low, do a drop step, and throw up a post hook. He's a righty. I thought he was a lefty for whatever reason. But he's able to finish with either hand. Now, the sample size is smaller, but I think that will help him transition to this particular role that Pat Kelsey is going to want him to play. And this is going to be a conversation that we will continue in the next segment when we talk about the front court in its entirety. But he's played under 20 minutes a game. He understands what it means to maximize your minimal minutes. Like, even though he might not get a ton of a role, especially early on, when he does play, he's going to maximize his impact to where, you watch him play, his high energy and high motor is what allows him to see the floor. Of course, 6'8", 260 pounds. He's really strong. He moves well for his size. But on offense, it's all about being that garbage man, so to speak, cleaning up the offensive glass. But also when the ball gets thrown down to him in the paint, where he can, be in the dunker spot and attack the basket or be involved in the pick and roll. I think that's going to bode well for his role next season with the guard play that the Cardinals have. I think he brings a skill set that Louisville just sort of needs. They need some bodies in the front court, not knowing with Ali Khalifa's situation. Of course, James Scott ends up entering the portal, so not many fives out there. And height doesn't really determine the role for me. It is the body type and the skill set. So Kenai Roots might be 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", but his body type and his skill set is more that of a wing or maybe even a power forward. But with Zougris at 6'8", he's got that center profile, and especially being 260 pounds. So understanding what it means to sacrifice and play a certain role for the better or for the greater good of the team, I think that's something that's going to help his transition to the college game when he joins Louisville. Now, defensively speaking, he's not a rim protector, but I do think that there is an element of his skill set that will allow him at times, not always, but at times, to defend the perimeter. I think he's going to do well defending the pick and rolls, which is going to be like sneaky valuable because Sananda has shown all season why he has the potential as a rim protector. But if you're looking for players that can bang down low, that can exhibit that toughness, that will not be outworked, well, you've got one now. at least one now with Vangelis Zougris. So I'm excited to see what his role is going to look like. Of course, he's not going to be a starter, but 21 years old, I think that there's potential for him to play a specific role this year. And then maybe in 2026-27, he's able to take another jump forward. And with him playing at this high level in Europe, what does 7.7 or 7.9 points per game in under 20 minutes per contest, equal out to on the American college side of things? Because it's not like he's playing in a lower level European league. He's playing in one of the top leagues in Europe. So let's take a look at what this means for the front court, because all of a sudden Louisville's got some bodies that they need to determine how they're going to distribute minutes, distribute roles, and much more. We'll take a look at that when we come back on this second Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel, and Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals of the NBA playoffs is here tonight between the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game, whether it's tip-off, whether it's live in-game betting. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win large. Of course, you need to do your homework here, but here's what I'm going to go with tonight. 3-leg same-game parlay. I like the Pacers to win tonight. I think that they are going to get the victory. Pacers money line right now is plus 150, so I'm going to go with that. I think Halliburton is going to continue to show out. He's minus 158 to score 20-plus points. So give me that as well. And then I'm going to throw in one that I just feel like, for whatever reason, Mikal Bridges is going to show out too. He's minus 220 for 15-plus points. So that's the 3-leg same-game parlay that I'm going with. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if you do, if it wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And Card Nation, I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Continuing the conversation after the news dropped, that Vangelis Zougris is a Louisville Cardinal. We got to kind of look at the front court now, because we went from, well, we just need bodies here, to 2 additions later. You wonder, how are we going to, distribute minutes? What are the roles going to look like? And much more. And I think it begins with understanding that with the transfer portal haul that addressed guard play, Louisville's likely going to run a vast amount of 3-guard lineups. You got 5 legit guards: Michael Brown Jr., Isaac McNeely, Ryan Conwell, Adrian Woolley, and Kobe Rogers. For the most part, I would believe that you're going to run the vast majority of 3-guard lineups. Now, there will probably be some, whether it's due to injury, foul trouble, matchups, you name it, you might not run 3 guards. But I think for the most part, that's going to be the case. So you don't have much playing time out there in terms of the front court. You've got 2 spots, basically, 3 at times. Now, at this moment, I would assume that Kasean, Pryor, and Sananda will be your starters. That has been my opinion ever since Kasean Pryor. I was trying to combine Kasean and Sananda. What a player that would be. The ability to attack the rim like Sananda and the perimeter work of Kasean Pryor. My gosh, don't. Oh gosh, that's incredible. But Pryor and Frew, I believe, are your starting 4 and 5. And of course, you're playing positionless basketball. And just because a player fits a specific skill set or role doesn't mean that you can't mix and match. And there's just no traditional 4s, 5s, 3s. Like, positionless basketball is just that. You're just combining skill sets. So even without Ali Khalifa potentially, you've got 4 other options. You know that Javon Hadley's going to play a lot. You're not convincing him to return if he's not going to have a significant role. Now, is it one that he plays 31, 32 minutes a night? No, he's probably closer to 20 than he is 31, 32, in my opinion. But he's going to be probably like that 6th or 7th man off the bench, along with the guard that didn't start out of the Michael, Ryan, Isaac, and Adrian. So right there, you have a 7-man rotation. And if Ali Khalifa returns, he's got the skill set to where he's going to be put into the rotation as well. So then you're at 8 men. You can throw guys around in the rotation, but Kobe Rogers is going to play. So that brings you to 9. And then you have, and of course, Pat Kelsey's system emphasizes frequent substitutions. But look at that last year that he coached at the College of Charleston. 10 players were mainly in the rotation. 2 of those guys averaged under 10 minutes a night. So who's going to be left out? Because you're going to have to give minutes to the top guards, and Kasean Pryor coming off the ACL tear, maybe those minutes get reduced, but he's going to play a lot. Hadley's going to play a lot. Frew is going to play a lot. If Khalifa gets ruled eligible, like Louisville is optimistic that he will, he's going to play a lot. So with a 9-man rotation there, you then have 3 spots remaining. You've got Kenai Roots, you've got Vangelis Zougris, and you have Muhammad Kamara. Now, I will say for the record that I think Kamara is going to be a potential redshirt candidate that you are hoping will develop and grow this season. The NBA Academy Africa standout is likely going to be a player that you will rely upon in 2026-27 to play a substantial defined role. So I think that could you roll with an 11-man rotation? The answer is yes, technically, but does that hurt consistency and continuity? And of course, you are bringing in injury insurance, and you're giving yourself options with depth. Even if guys don't live up to expectations, you have other guys that could play a role. So, I mean, I look at Zugris and Kamara, more so Kamara, to be like a strictly situational player. Like you use him at the end of TV time or before TV timeouts, going into the halves, going into situations where you're dealing with foul trouble, maybe injuries. I mean, you just saw a season last year where the Cardinals, they got decimated early on. Corin Johnson played 2 games before he went out for the year. Kasean Pryor played, less than 10 before he went out for the year. Abubakar Traore played 2 games and then missed a good chunk of the out-of-conference schedule. So you have to be you have to balance the rotation and the depth, and that's why Pat Kelsey and company make the money that they do to make these decisions. So I think that Zugris is going to be one of those end-of-the-rotation players. I think he will likely play definitely under 15 minutes, especially if Ali Khalifa gets ruled eligible. But if he doesn't, then Zugris will play a larger role, which I think he will be able to. But hopefully Ali doesn't have to miss next year, and hopefully he is able to play in a Louisville uniform this upcoming fall. But I'm extremely excited to see how this works out for the Cardinals front court, because with 2 pieces added, of course, you're adding to the end of the rotation, and there will be games where they play more than others. Speaking of Zugris and Kamara, more so I'm interested to see what Kenai Root's role is going to be, because you're wanting to see him blossom between freshman and sophomore year, but the role has to be there, right? And there's going to be situations where there will be 2 guards on the court, and maybe it's Hadley at the 3 or Roots at the 3 or even Kamara at the 3. You never know. Or maybe it's 3 guards and then you play a small ball lineup, or you go with a ton of size. There's so many different lineups that you can throw out there, and I'm really, really interested to see how this is going to work out for Pat Kelsey's front court. But with the logjam for minutes all up and down this rotation, the question now becomes, with the Ali Khalifa situation in mind, will the Louisville Cardinals add anyone else? Should they add another player? We'll answer those questions, or try to, when we come back on this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, do want to once again reiterate that this is the final episode of the month of May. We will then go into off-season mode for the Locked On College Network. The Locked On Louisville podcast will have 12 episodes in the month of June. It equates to about 3 episodes per month. I'm not really sure if it's going to be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just kind of wait for news, or just kind of mix and match. I'll try to keep you all as informed as I can so you know what to look out for, but understand that beginning next week, we will go from 19 monthly episodes down to 12. So appreciate you all understanding. Let's have some more discussion. Let's conduct the final segment of the month. And wow, the final segment of the athletic calendar. So that means year 3 hosting this show comes to an end. That's pretty wild. But will Louisville add anyone else to the roster, and should they add anyone else to the roster? And I think that the answers to those questions could be different, because I think I could see a situation where, with 11 current players and potentially 12 with Ali Khalifa, Louisville could decide to say, you know what, that's enough. The roster is better overall than it was last year. I don't foresee a situation where the Cardinals are dealing with as many injuries as they did last year, but you never know. And it might be more difficult to recruit the end of the roster with meaningful depth, that even if they bring a guy in and he's not ready, is committing the resources to bringing that player in, is the return on investment worth it if he's not ready to play? And it's hard to convince a player to say, hey, look, you may or may not play. And that's where the whole conversation of whether or not the Cardinals are going to bring in a star or not kind of goes. Yes, it sounds good to bring a star in, but whose minutes are you going to take? Who are you going to replace in the rotation? And how are you going to distribute the minutes and roles in an already crowded rotation? So I'm not really too sold. Like, I can see it either way. And this is just kind of from what I've gathered. Louisville could be done adding to the roster until they hear about Ali Khalifa. The dangerous part about that is we don't know when that news is going to come. It could come in the next week, the next month, the end of summer, before next season, next winter. One thing about the NCAA is for sure is that logic is not involved with the rulings and the timeline. So we're sort of in that hurry up and wait camp. But I do subscribe to the mentality and the opinion that Louisville should add one more player. I don't think 15 is the right number. Like, you shouldn't fill all 15 spots, because then, you're just creating problems and you're redshirting multiple guys. Why not just bring in one player to be a potential redshirt guy? Couple different ways you can fill this spot. I would say 3. The first one, you could go back to the international market, which you have done 3 times this cycle with Sananda, Muhammad Kamara, and Vangelis Zougris. You can go get a younger international player that you believe in the traits, the skill set, and the potential, but might be a little bit raw as a prospect. Bring him in, get him practicing and working out with your program, and redshirt him for next season, or for the 2026-27 season. The second avenue that you could go down is looking at the transfer portal right now, looking at a player or players that are being overlooked a bit, younger players with a ton of talent that you believe in, but the production might be there, and redshirt that player and go through that same process. Or door number 3 is probably one of the more unorthodox and messier avenues to go down because there's a lot of academic hoops you have to jump through and things of that nature, but a reclassification. Maybe there's a player in 2026 that you think, hey, if you could convince, of course, wishful thinking here, maybe you convince an elite level guy to say, hey, why don't you speed up your process and join us this summer, redshirt this year, and we'll have you ready for 2026-27. Or maybe it is a guy that might be ranked a little lower. But again, it's all about believing in your scouting, and you believe in the scouting there, and you're going through that process too. So worst case scenario, you have to burn that red shirt, and those players have to give you minutes, whether it is in relief of foul trouble, injuries, fatigue, blowouts. I don't care, because you could tell Louisville hit a wall and they ran out of gas at the end of the conference late last year and going into the tournament. So I'm all for giving yourself that insurance, because if Ali Khalifa gets ruled eligible, cool, you just redshirt them. If he does get ruled ineligible, if the ineligibility status stays intact and is standing, then maybe they're end of rotation guys. What position would be the best spot to fill? And that's the last question we'll answer before we get out of here, because the guard spot is kind of filled up. The front court is filled up. I would say that with a 3-guard lineup, I wouldn't mind seeing another end of the rotation guard, because you have those pieces in the front court that you can, sort of develop for next year, whether it's Zugris, whether it is Kamara, potentially Roots, Fru, you name it. You don't really have that guard option to develop. I mean, Adrian Woolley likely will come back in 2026-27, but he's going to be like a star level player. I could see Louisville going out and getting a developmental piece at guard, and then at that point you sort of are able to go into next offseason with a foundation of either players that you foresee will become starters or standout players, or just meaningful depth. But that is going to wrap up this final episode of the month of May. There's going to be some more football talk as we get into June and get into July, working on some interviews. Of course, if you all have any questions you want to submit for next week's mailbag, which was great this week, or if you have any topic/segment suggestions or recommendations, things that you want to hear me talk about, please feel free to drop those in the comments below. But everyone, have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here in June. Go Cards.